It began on a placid Sunday, bright and still, the sort of morning when even the insects seemed too lethargic for conflict. Grandpa was positioned on his porch rocker, cold beverage condensing beside him, and the atmosphere smelled of fresh-cut greenery and quiet. Then that voice arrived, cleaving the serenity. Greetings, sharp and destined to disrupt someone's tranquility. Positively zero poultry, Mr. Henderson, she snapped. It was the head of the association herself, marching onto the gravel walkway as if she held the title to the planet beneath her footwear. Karen Witherspoon, a list of infractions gripped like a sign of power. Hair lacquered so firmly it might repel projectiles. Grandpa didn't budge an inch. He just swayed once, unhurried, the way elders do when they recognize the battle isn't worth getting up for. But then, the earth vibrated. From behind the storage structure came two figures that seemed out of place in this era. 7-foot-tall birds with dagger-like talons and eyes that shone like glass oiled filled with troublemaking. They paraded directly into the daylight, heads oscillating, wings half-fanned, the perfect image of prehistoric self-assurance. Karen froze. One of them hissed, low and hostile, the noise of a slow tire leak. The other tilted its neck, stretched forward, and swiped that list of rules cleanly from her manicured fingers. Paperwork burst apart like streamers. Karen shrieked, tumbling backward into Grandma's prized flower patch. Grandpa didn't even react. He lifted his beverage and declared, "Karen, see my new security." That's when the entire road awakened. Blinds moved, canines yelped, children celebrated as if it were a holiday. Karen fled, yelling down the pavement with two angered emus close behind, nipping at her practical trousers. Grandpa just rocked and cackled until the rocker groaned in objection. What no one realized then was that this minor conflict had been brewing for some time. And those fowl weren't merely companions. They were a component of Grandpa's grand strategy. You see, a week prior, the association had delivered him a formal warning printed on expensive stationery, labeling his chickens a sanitation risk. Pest-generating annoyances, they labeled them. They faulted his rooster for disturbing the vicinity at sunrise, claimed the coop detracted from community visual standards. Grandpa almost gagged on his morning drink. Pests, he grumbled. In my day, we referred to that as breakfast. But the prohibition was approved regardless. No foul, no leeway, $500 penalty for offenders. Karen paraded about after that as if she'd brokered a peace accord for humanity itself. Grandpa, however, wasn't built to capitulate. He'd been keeping poultry longer than many people had been breathing. To him, they weren't just farm animals. They were solace, friendship, a quiet defiance against the contemporary age. So when she strode into his property, brandishing that penalty warning, Grandpa met her gaze directly, crumpled the document, flung it onto the decking, and chuckled, the type of chuckle that signaled impending difficulty. That evening, his pickup vanished down the rural lane. By dawn, the rumor mill was churning. Some thought he conceded. Others suggested the municipality finally evicted him. Karen boasted to all who would hear that she'd sanitized the neighborhood. Then the following afternoon, that battered Ford rattled back up the path, towing a steel enclosure substantial enough to contain a prehistoric creature. Inside, two emus, long-necked, long-legged, appearing offended by the ground. Grandpa leaped down from the driver's seat, dusted his palms, and smiled broadly. Since they outlawed chickens, he stated, I decided I'd acquire something superior. Meet Earl and Duke, premier guardfowl in the region. The vicinity fell quiet. The birds hissed like malfunctioning heaters. Dogs retreated behind barriers. Karen inhaled so sharply I worried she might ingest an insect. Grandpa wasn't faking, either. It emerged that emus aren't foul. They are officially designated as livestock guardians, identical to working farm dogs. The association regulations had no provision for them. Exemption secured. For a time, affairs were calm in the most disorderly manner imaginable. Earl and Duke acclimated perfectly, monitoring the grounds like regal sentinels. They'd march the perimeter at dawn, rest in the cool at midday, and pursue runners who wore bright-colored vests. The postman began signaling from the road rather than approaching the house. A youth vending subscriptions got stranded atop our lumber stack, yelling for his mother, while Duke stood watch below, unmoved. Grandpa remarked, more reliable than security setup, quicker than any canine, and more frightening than your extended family at holidays. Karen, meanwhile, was coming undone. She summoned animal services, but those hapless agents didn't survive 10 minutes. The lanky one attempted to ensnare Earl and got rammed into a shrub. The shorter one forfeited his cap and a good portion of his self-respect. When Karen insisted they contain the animals instantly, Grandpa rested on his porch support and said slowly, "Curious. Seems like they're the ones containing you." The vehicle sped away from the cul-de-sac in retreat. The residents couldn't get enough. They supplied patio furniture, snacks, recording devices. Children began yelling, "Go Earl! Go Duke!" One person even produced apparel. Grandpa absorbed it all like a retired marshal observing justice handling itself. By the week's conclusion, he'd outfitted both birds with small leather restraints and gleaming sheriff insignias. "Meet Deputy Earl and Deputy Duke," he revealed. "Law and stability, the avian version." Karen went ballistic. She covered the community notice board with leaflets that shouted, "Hazardous fowl at large." She visited homes attempting to gather backing for a formal complaint, but Earl shadowed her every move, hissing quietly until she fled home distressed. Every effort she mounted to restore authority merely amplified the mythology. Even old Mr. Barlow, who detested everyone universally, conceded, "Haven't noticed a package thief in ages. Those birds are hideous, but they're effective." A week passed, and the association opted to re-establish dominance. Free committee members arrived clad in bright orange vests, whistles hanging from their necks, moving like wind-up toys behind Karen and her loudspeaker. "Notice, residents," she proclaimed, "these fowl disturb neighborhood tranquility and shall be forcibly extracted." She hadn't completed the phrase before Earl hissed and Duke stamped. Then the assault. It was pure comical bedlam. Committee members leaping into shrubbery. One man running so fast his shoe flew off mid-stride. Karen yelling atop the hood of her vehicle as Duke jabbed the bumper. Grandpa guffawed until moisture streamed down his face. Finest amusement this association ever funded. By dusk, the cul-de-sac resembled a conflict area. Shattered clipboards, strewn whistles, one distressed loudspeaker. Karen stood trembling, hair disheveled, pointing an unsteady finger. "This constitutes war, Henderson." Grandpa ejected a sunflower husk onto the ground. "Sweetheart, you announced hostilities 3 penalties ago." That evening, something shifted. A dark SUV navigated into the road, lamps extinguished, motor quiet. A man in a dark uniform exited and shook Karen's hand. They conferred in low voices at her entrance, her movement sharp, frantic. From our deck, Grandpa observed, expression taut. "That isn't animal services," he murmured. "That's something different." 2 days later, we learned what. Sunday morning, a new person stood with Karen. Tall, reflective eyewear, heavy glove on his arm. Resting on that glove was a golden eagle the size of a nightmare. Karen's smile could have illuminated the entire area. "Meet Justice," she declared. "Your overgrown poultry are mismatched against a top-tier hunter." The eagle fanned its wings, darkness sweeping over the yards. The neighbors audibly gasped. Grandpa stayed put. He adjusted his hat. Odd designation for a bird employed by the association. Karen disregarded him, smiling as if she'd already succeeded. The handler raised his arm, and Justice ascended skyward with a cry that sent every dog nearby hiding under a house. Earl and Duke craned their necks, gazes fixed on the new adversary. The boundaries were established. For the following few days, that eagle circled like a predator with a grudge. Each time it plunged, the emus evaded, hissed, struck back. The road transformed into a spectator event. Kids crafted cardboard placards. Team EMU versus Team Eagle. Grandpa observed from his patio chair, eating peanuts. "Superior to television," he commented. When the eagle descended low, Duke kicked so forcefully he launched Karen's ceramic gnome into the atmosphere. The onlookers cheered. Karen intensified her efforts. She summoned animal services again, this time equipped with sedation projectiles. The projectiles merely angered the birds. Earl extracted one from his plumage and broke it in 2. Then pest services arrived with capture devices. They misplaced their safety helmets in 30 seconds. Duke paraded around subsequently wearing one like a diadem. Grandpa was convulsed with laughter. Productive law enforcement, right there. Even the regional sheriff was drawn into the absurdity. Journalists inquired what he intended to do. He stated, "No statute exists against owning emus. Honestly, those birds ensure everyone stays on their best conduct." That statement alone elevated Grandpa to folk hero status. Karen was incensed. She displayed a massive sign at the cul-de-sac entry stating, "No poultry, no predators, no problems." By dawn, Duke had ripped it to pieces. Earl paraded through the remnants like a general returning from conquest. The association committee was disintegrating. Residents allied with Grandpa. Media crews set up on lawns. And the web anointed him Sheriff Grandpa. But Karen was not beaten. Late one evening, she convened her remaining supporters behind drawn blinds. "If regulations can't halt him, if the eagle can't halt him, we will undermine him from inside," she hissed. "I petition for a neighborhood restraining order. Next week, we haul him to court." Across the road, Grandpa lowered his viewing device and chuckled. "Court again, eh? Suppose it's time to move this contest to the major leagues." The judicial building was bedlam that morning. Journalists flooded the entrance. Children held posters of Earl and Duke depicted as superheroes. Karen appeared in a pantsuit so rigid it audibly creaked, her handler beside her, the eagle watching from its station. Grandpa wandered up leisurely, hat pulled down, sunflower seeds in his pocket, Earl and Duke marching behind like his defense counsel. Inside, the magistrate sighed before even taking his seat. "Let's maintain civility, people." Fat chance of that. Karen began a monologue about public welfare and respectability, calling the emus ancient monstrosities. Grandpa stood composed when it was his time. "Your Honor," he stated, "they outlawed poultry. These here ain't poultry. They are livestock guardians, entirely permissible under the bylaws. What this truly concerns is dominance." The chamber murmured agreement. Then the handler moved forward for a display. He freed the eagle to demonstrate discipline and compliance. The bird cried out and plunged low above the jury. Gasps reverberated. Karen extended her arms theatrically. "Witness a representation of order," she announced. Just before disorder broke out, Earl dashed beneath the seating. Duke rushed straight up the center. The eagle circled for another plunge, but discovered two irate emus prepared. Wings beat, plumage flew, documents scattered. Attorneys ducked for safety. The judge struck his mallet, yelling, "Order! Order!" No one complied. At one juncture, Duke snatched Karen's hairpiece cleanly from her head and paraded triumphantly. Earl trapped the eagle near the testimony box, hissing like a steam engine. The bailiff appeared poised to resign. Cameras activated. Journalists recorded every moment. When it concluded, the eagle sat morosely on the dais while Duke deposited the hairpiece directly onto the judge's workspace. The judge sighed, rubbing his forehead. Case suspended for now. And someone find that bird representation. Outside, the onlookers burst into applause. "Emus 2, Eagle 0, someone yelled. Karen exited furiously, face red, folder tattered. "This is not finished," she yelled. Grandpa adjusted his hat for the media. Justice wears feathers, everyone. That evening, the vicinity partied like it was a national holiday. Refreshments, grilled food, people celebrating on driveways. The godbird stood majestically under the porch illumination, insignia shining. But across the road, Karen's residence still shone. Her silhouette moved behind the blinds, pausing periodically to stare our direction. Grandpa set down his drink. "She's not finished." The emus moved restlessly in the barn, agitated, detecting the disturbance. Morning arrived, heavy and peculiar. The atmosphere felt overly hushed, the type of silence that conceals something significant. Then the vibration came. 3 dark SUVs entering the cul-de-sac. Government insignias reflecting. Men in suits emerged, stone-faced, clipboards ready. Karen trailed, beaming with victory, her eagle positioned like a diadem. "Federal involvement," she declared. "You can't chucker your way past this, Henderson." Grandpa rocked once, slowly. "Odd, Karen." I always believed liberty commenced where association dictates ended. The primary agent repositioned his eyewear. So, we've gotten complaints of exotic fauna creating disruptions. Relinquish them peacefully, or we will relinquish them with authority. The neighbors gasped. Earl hissed. Duke stamped, dirt billowing around their legs. Karen smiled. Proceed. The handler lifted his arm. The eagle ascended, circling once, then plunging with claws glinting in the light. Earl lunged. Duke kicked. The street descended into turmoil anew. Media recorded. Children yelled. Guardians pulled them away. Karen shouted, subdue them, justice. But Grandpa just stood, calm as the center of a hurricane. He placed down his beverage, fastened his vintage sheriff belt, the metallic star reflecting the daylight. Unleash the third one, he commanded. The barn doors groaned open. Something enormous shifted within. Heavier footfalls, a deeper hiss. The ground vibrated. Out from the gloom emerged a third emu, taller, darker, marked as if it had endured countless farm conflicts. Grandpa smiled. Meet General Sherman. The creature advanced, plumage bristling like dark flames, eyes alight with defiance. Karen's clipboard dropped from her fingers. The eagle hesitated mid-plunge, senses screaming. Withdraw. The onlookers stopped breathing. Grandpa's voice resonated across the turmoil, steady as always. Now, he stated, the proper contest starts. And that is where the narrative pauses currently. Because if there's a single thing I've gleaned from residing near Grandpa Henderson, it's that you cannot confine obstinacy. You can locate it, ridicule it, even dispatch the authorities after it, but it will still discover a method to rise, clean itself off, and chuckle. Those birds weren't simply his exemption. They were his spirit in avian form. Untamed, devoted, resistant to domestication. Sometimes I contemplate if Karen ever grasped the entire disagreement ceased being about poultry long before. It concerned dignity, dominance, and the brand of liberty that doesn't fit tidily in a regulation. Perhaps she'll comprehend it eventually, or perhaps she'll just persist in lodging grievances until the end of days. But if you motor down Oak Ridge now, you'll still spot them. Earl and Duke monitoring the perimeter like sentinels from a bygone age, insignias reflecting in the light. And if you pay close attention, you might perceive the low sound of cackling drifting from the deck, the noise of a man who conquered regulations with beaks and plumage. So here's my query for you. If your association attempted to remove your quiet, your territory, your entitlement to exist as you choose, would you resist or would you discover your own workaround? Inform me in the feedback what you'd do. Because around here in the territory of free wills and stubborn agriculturalists, sometimes righteousness doesn't carry a badge. Sometimes it hisses. So here's my query for you. If your association attempted to remove your quiet, your territory, your entitlement to exist as you choose, would you resist or would you discover your own workaround? Inform me in the feedback what you'd do. Because around here in the territory of free wills and stubborn agriculturalists, sometimes righteousness doesn't carry a badge. Sometimes it hisses.